Okay. Okay, good. So we're recording this meeting. I'm always afraid I have to write myself a note to do this, otherwise I'll forget. But welcome everybody. This is something that I started 3 weeks ago. It's called a Paparelli. I called it the Paparelli Zoom chat, and where it's intended to be a forum for entrepreneurs to discuss our issues and challenges and to share our views and our decisions. So we're in a very critical time right now for all of our businesses, and it makes sense to do it now, but I'm thinking that this might actually go forward in some way. Just some house rules, things that I'm learning about using this technology. And I got 5 of them. One is I've muted you all from the start. So as you speak, if you're going to speak, is if you would just unmute yourself, and then when you're finished, remute. And if you don't, I'll mute you. Also, I'd appreciate if you'd stay on video. I think that it's important that we stay engaged, and I encourage you to jump in and participate. You know, we've got a lot of extroverts on the call. They can kind of hog the party here, but you know, I encourage you introverts and those in between to kind of step in too. For those of you also, I think that you have a speaker view in the top right-hand corner, which will give you, just show you one speaker, or you can use this gallery view. I encourage you to use gallery view so you can see everybody. Thirdly, there's something called chat that you see here on the bottom of your screen, and I encourage you to use it, okay? You can talk to me, or you can talk to each other without me being part of that loop if you want to introduce yourself to somebody or connect with somebody that you didn't know before or somebody you did know. We'll start on time and we'll end on time. I'm going to do this, get in early so that we can kind of catch up with each other. So I'll be 15 minutes early for this call every week. And then the last is, before you share, please give some background on you and your company, so that when you do share, whatever your remarks are, we can kind of put them in context and we kind of know where you're coming from. You know, today's thought today that's going to lead this discussion, you know, I always say this, the entrepreneur's thought of the day is something I've done now 2 weeks. I'm going to continue to do it. And this is right from God. It's from Isaiah 55:9. It says, "As the heavens are higher than the earth, so are my ways higher than your ways, and my thoughts than your thoughts." And I chose that because I think what God is telling us is that we need to think bigger as entrepreneurs, bigger than we ever did before. For the last 10 years, our focus for those of us in this whole startup community has been on this term product market fit. And this is the height of microeconomics, right? Our goal in the exercise is to get to where our intended customer can puts themselves in a, they cannot not buy from us. We were so focused in on this, and now we're focused. Now we're being forced to think way bigger. You know, as an angel investor working with startups for the last 27 years. I've learned one thing, and that is you can't beat macroeconomics. You know, if we're in an operating environment, the operating environment where we work in, okay, is really dictates how well we might be able to do, whether we'll succeed or even not succeed. And we're seeing this operating environment change rapidly. You know, we've been able to ignore the macroeconomic view of things in these last 10 years because we've had great growth and great stability in our economy and worldwide. It's been amazing for us, but that's not the case now. So now we have to pay attention to 3 things that we never really even thought about. And the first one is in our planning for our businesses. And the first one is the virus and the mitigation efforts to stop the virus, because this virus has literally stopped our economy. And secondly, is we have to think about the help the government is offering to mitigate job loss. This new CARES Act has a big impact on our thinking, in that the government is saying, I want you to keep all your employees on board, and guess what? I'll pay for them, which is like, if I told you that that would happen, you would have told me I would be crazy, but here we are. And it plays into our thinking now. And then thirdly, is these weekly unemployment claims. I showed you something from the Wall Street Journal, a chart from the Wall Street Journal on how in 1 week we had 3.3 million unemployment claims. These claims are going to be an indicator going forward as to the speed of the recovery and when we'll get back to growth mode again. So we never thought about that and played that into our sort of into our planning, but now we're forced to do that. And these thoughts are way beyond product market fit, but we are all being thrust into this product market fit analysis again, even though we figured it out, because our buyers' priorities have changed because of the macro view. Everything goes top down is the way it all works. So today what I wanted to do is have as a discussion 3 questions. One is, what assumptions are you making about the macro economy? Because that's going to drive your planning. Secondly, what is your biggest concern about your business? And thirdly, what are you doing about it? Is Jim Grady on board with us? Yeah? Jim, are you here yet? No Jim Grady. Okay. I asked, well, somebody, who's a good note taker for us? I need somebody.
I'm here. I'm here. I just had to unmute.
Okay. Is there somebody here who can take notes for us too? Hey, Jeff, are you a good note taker?
I'll do the best I can, Charlie.
Huh?
I'll do the best I can. Note taker.
So will you, Jeff, will you take notes for us?
Sure, I'd be happy to do
discussion, and then share them back with me, and then I'll share them out with the group as part of this recorded call. Thanks. I appreciate that.
My pleasure.
And Jim, you made it. Thank you.
Charles. Yeah, I'm here. I just had to unmute.
Oh, okay, good. I asked a lifelong entrepreneur, somebody I've invested in a couple of times and invested in right now. This is Jim Grady. Jim is a very, very dear friend of mine. And we started together when he worked for me as a sales rep back in the early 80s, like 1981. And he kind of caught the bug watching what Richard and I did, and said, he left us and said, I want to be an entrepreneur. And he's pursued that career all his adult life here. One of the things he did is he went to the Wharton School, and everybody from Wharton went to Wall Street, and Jim came back to Atlanta and also worked a little in Silicon Valley to start companies. So that's what his whole life has been around about. But I think that what I found is that Jim is a really good thinker. He's very strategic, but he's also very tactical. And with all of his experience, I thought that I asked him if he would share some of what's going on, what his thinking is, and what's happening in his business. Jim just closed on a round of almost $4 million. He got in right under the wire. And in fact, had a couple of people, the last couple, that sort of checked back on him a bit. But he's got money, and he's got this pressure to use it to grow his business. And yet he's stifled by this sort of economic environment that we're in. So Jim, why don't you tell us a little bit about your view of things and how you've kind of been going about your plans and concerns that you have.
Okay. Ask me specifics, but I hope everybody can hear me. So our company is Hello Package. The product's Hello Package. It's called Package Solutions is the company. We service multifamily apartments, about 45,000 apartment communities in America, handling packages. So think of Amazon packages coming in. So we spent about almost 5 years working on a technology, hardware, software, and people to do that. We raised about $9 million. We have just finished our Series A. We have 2 VCs that have invested in both rounds, seed and Series A. And we're now preparing to raise a $10 million Series B round somewhere probably the end of this year. That's our intent. So we've signed up some of the largest apartment owners and managers in the country. So for us, the decision, and let me know if you can't hear me, the decision was like everybody, the knee jerk of do we retrench, pull into port, cut our burn, and let this storm pass, or do we continue on our path, hopefully right-sizing a bit, and kind of fly with our instruments, meaning this is going to pass, the economy will come back, we want to take a market, there's competitors in there already, and we would like to, come out of this stronger. And so it's a real gut check. I mean, you really have to put your thinking cap on and go through the permeations and combinations, and you have to think through, get some really smart people to help you make sure you have all the details on the table, all the variables. And then if you kind of get in your process mode and your decision-making mode, and you start thinking about how would this play out. And one thing I'd like to stress, and I've studied this a lot, and I've worked with some really smart people, not the least of which is Charlie and a bunch of other people who've helped me learn how to think stuff like this through, and I've lived through a few of these, is that you have to get, I call it the boogeyman in the box, and this is a very important part of your equation, to take it out. And the boogeyman in the box is we all are humans and we're susceptible to what the worst case scenario is. And I've been trained by smart people to put that boogeyman in the box. Think about all the things that could go wrong that could destroy you. And then what you have to figure out, and Charlie's first point today, which I took notes on, is the macroeconomic factors. You're subject to those, but so is everyone else, which means that if the world blows up and we go into full-scale depression because of this, it doesn't matter what you do. You're going to go down with that ship. It does not matter. So you really don't actually have to worry about it. The government has an unlimited balance sheet for one thing. They can fix it. So you put all those things in the box and you take that and you put that box to the side because it's really not actually part of your thinking because you're totally out of control on that. And then you put the things on the table, leave on the table, the things that you actually can do something about. And here's the way I analyze this business. And I'll make this short and let everybody ask questions or whatever, we can move on, is I think about it in terms of my market, my buyer, are they buying or not buying? And if they are buying or they're thinking about buying, then I need to stay in that game and I need to make sure that I come out of this stronger, I being our company. And if they're not buying, then I have to reevaluate and say, should I pull over for a little while? That's really the key. And once I set those keys in place, once I call them tripwires, once I put the tripwires in place that I know I've got a trip to, I can let my brain rest a little bit. Because I think you get fatigued from just going in circles and what I call thrashing. It's like a computer just running all the time and it just wears you out. So if you put the tripwires in place, you put the boogeyman in a box, and then you do a number of scenarios where you think this plan and this plan and this plan, you framed it up. And at that point, you're in a good position to make the best decision. And here's a key part of this. Just realize you can change your mind completely tomorrow. So you're not locked. Even if you tell everybody, we're going this direction, we're going to pick option B, and it's going to be this. Hey, guess what? Tomorrow you can change your mind. So it takes the pressure off of you a little bit and allows you to think clearly and allows you to evolve. And I know everybody does this to a certain extent, but I think if you do that, you can keep your brain clear and you keep your energy level up and you can focus your mind on what's important. So Charlie, I don't know, please ask me anything you want to know, but that's kind of how I process it at a very high level.
When you talk about the boogeyman in the box, I'm saying, don't you have to make some assumptions with regard to the macro economy? You can't just park it and say, I'm going to ignore it. And just
the boogeyman in the box to me is not, the macro economy are different, right? So boogeyman in the box is people get in their minds, so they don't articulate the boogeyman, meaning what is actually the boogeyman? Well, if we go into a full-scale depression, that's the boogeyman. If everybody gets sick and nobody can function and we can't go back to work, that's the boogeyman. And there's a number of other things on the boogeyman list, right? But those things, if those things happen, you're not ever going to plan around that. It is absolutely Armageddon.
Those things are like catastrophic. Okay. And I get that.
That's my point though.
But here's the thing. Like when I saw those figures of 3.3 million people claiming unemployment in a week, when we're usually dealing with 100 or 200,000. Okay. out of a workforce of 60 to 65 million, you know, I looked at that and I said, man, how long will it take for those people to be absorbed? And different businesses, you know, depending, like if you're in IT staffing, you're in other things like that, different versus being in the product business that you're in, different businesses will be affected differently. But from a macro standpoint, if there's huge unemployment, and let's see these claims continue, and we do get, you make an assumption we're going to be at 10%, or you make a assumption we'll be at some ridiculous number like 20%. How long is it going to take for how deep will it bring the recession, and how long will it take for the recovery? I need to make some assumption, I think, in order to make sure that I have enough cash to come out on the other end. That's what I'm.
Yeah, so my overall point. My overall point is this: is I hear you. And those assumptions, people can try to make them. They're very difficult to do. Number one, because you don't know that the federal government can print money forever. So you don't know what effect the federal government will have. They cannot let the economy slide into depression, because that is a much more expensive proposition. So you don't know the effect. So all I'm saying is if you can calculate that accurately, then fine. But you would be the smartest person on earth. So you really can't calculate that. You don't know. So what you have to do is put those things in a box and say, look, I have no idea. I don't know what the effect of the government is. I don't know what the effect of any of this is. I just know my emotions are going to be retrench, 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 because that's the natural human behavior, right? Yes means yes. No means no, and maybe means no. So the by far the most emotion people have is retrench, cut, go in a hole. But the problem is when the sunshine comes back out, you could be in a very bad position. You miss the opportunity to grow your business and get stronger. Now you have to do that intelligently, and you have to know what market you're in. But that gut reaction of retrench could be exactly the wrong reaction.
Yeah, I remember
that's the overall point.
One of the concerns that you had, you said, all these people gave me money, and he asked the question, what's the best course that I should take to honor the expectations of my shareholders? I mean, that was something that's weighed on you very heavily. And
correct. We've raised $9 million to go win a market. We didn't raise the money to go retrench and keep their money in our bank account. Right. So now, do we have to right size? Do we have to spend carefully? Do we have to make sure we invest properly? Our goal is when the sun does come back out, which it will, to be stronger. There will be companies that go through this and they are stronger as a result. Now, it is macro and market dependent, okay? We happen to be in a market. I'm getting ready to, there's an Atlanta Business Chronicle article coming out. They're getting ready to photograph us today. So it's a very topical thing, packages, coronavirus, blah, 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 blah. So we happen to be in that market. If I was in some other markets, I may feel differently. But in our particular market where we are going to try to come through this stronger in a much more competitive position.
Then tell me this, Jim, what is, so you've got yourself, I know that we've worked through this for the last couple of weeks and you've settled out now as to where you're headed, which is great. What concerns, you call them tripwires, what concerns do you have that might, as you say, change your mind tomorrow?
I think if the government if they keep showing, look, we've got an open balance sheet and we're going to not let this economy slide off the, cheese slide off the cracker, that'll give me encouragement, right? Because I think they will. I think they'll throw as much money as they need to at it. Okay. The other thing is that if our buyers were to say, look, we are out of the game forever, like we're not ever coming back. Okay, yeah, well, but these are very large companies that have a very large time horizon. In our case, they're $100 million projects. So we have that going for us, right? So, but if that changed and I really saw that, I would really have to think hard. And if this virus doesn't get under control, like if we're going to just keep going with this for months and months and months, then you have to be intelligent. But I'm looking for green shoots. I'm not a Pollyannish or an optimist in that regard. I'm looking for them. If I see them, I'm going to keep investing because I believe you have to. One last thought here, and I'll shut up. Everybody else talk. Is that I think you have to pull back to the helicopter or the space shuttle view, and you have to think about your business and say, is the thing I'm doing, is it growing? Is this going to be more in demand or less in demand? And if you believe fundamentally you're going to be more in demand and you've got enough resources to keep going, then I don't know how you win by not keep going. That seems like the riskiest position to me. I don't mean blow money and go crazy like a drunk
No, but
sailor.
I think
Be
it's
careful.
clear. When you're more in demand, I think it's a little bit easier. When you start seeing market pull, it sort of it's a great indicator as to where you should be doing. And we're seeing that with some of our companies that are out there, particularly in the healthcare sector right now, you know, or in the logistics sector, they're doing well, or groceries, you know, kind of doing well. But there's a lot of market pull in those areas. So that makes it obvious. Anybody want to ask Jim a question?
Jim, I have a question for you. This is John Lally. My question is, yes, you're investing, and I understand all the things you said, but one of the assumptions is going to be, or that you'll have to make is, while you're planning to raise a Series B at the end of the year or early 2021, how are you assessing what the runway is for the $4 million of capital that just was injected into the business?
In terms of where the cutoff is that what you're saying? What's essential?
Here's the way I'm thinking about it. There is the growth you talked about. And if we weren't going through this virus, you'd be, excuse me, expression, balls to the wall based on what I've just heard you say. Since that's not the case and we're in unprecedented times, you now got to think about how long is that $4 million going to last, assuming I'm not going to be able to do my Series B until sometime in the future, which at this point is very hard to discern. So how do you balance I want to grow this business with, I've got to have enough runway to continue this plane down that path? Okay,
so in our case, I mean, you know, we've gone in and cut executive salaries. We've gone in and, you know, most of our payroll is covered by the government for the time being. We have and continue to invest in our technology and our servicing of our clients, our customers. So, you know, we've tried to right size and be very careful with our money. So we're very prudent about what we're doing now. Don't misunderstand that at all. But we are also betting on the fact that Series B money, the investment community, will not go away. They have money. They've raised a lot of money. And we don't have to win everything. We're raising $10 million at the end of the year, not $1 billion. So 10 million in that sea of money is a very, very small amount vis-a-vis the pool, number one. Number two is we have to be the prettiest company in that show. So by not investing or retrenching, I don't see how we ever raise the Series B. So we have to be pretty, growing customers, et cetera. Otherwise, we really do take a risk by not getting the money, because we won't be a real investable company at that point. So that's our risk mitigation strategy on that. You know, we don't want to retrench because we're not even in the game at that point. So I hope I'm answering your question, but that's how we're doing. We're trying to really be careful on how we think it through.
Hey, Chip Schoeneman, I hadn't talked to you in a long time, and you're a good CEO, and you're actually selling to government. Would you share some of your thoughts around, you know, assumptions you're making on the economy, your biggest concern about your business and what you're doing about it?
Sure.
And if you would give us some context, give us a little bit about you.
Yeah, so we're a 22-year-old IT consulting firm to the federal and state governments. Very few of you are going to like what I'm just going to tell you, but we are 100% operational. 100% of our team members are working 100% of the time right now. We have not lost a dime of revenue, primarily because we contract with the Department of Defense and state agencies around the country. So as a business, what are we doing? We meet weekly religiously as an organization, as an executive team. And our big focus right now is just facing the realities that are in front of us. I like what Mr. Grady said, and that is, do not try to use your crystal ball. It's broken every single time. It just doesn't work. You're not going to be able to predict the future. What you should do is look at your business and the realities and say, all right, this is what we're doing. What we're doing is looking at our team and saying, do we have the right people functioning in the right functions? So what are the functions we have to have when we come out of this in 3 months, 6 months, 12 months? And do we have the right people in the right seats? And are we charging them to meet their metrics, if you will? Again, in our business, we haven't seen a slowdown. We've seen a lot of distractions. 97% of our team members 3 weeks ago were working at a client location or one of our company locations. Now 94% of our team members are working teleworking from home. That's created a lot of distractions, but our daily communication with them and our weekly communication with them is find a way to serve your customers despite the circumstances that you find yourself in with your kids running behind you, taking care of elderly parents or whatever. And so we're trying to encourage them to do that. The assumptions we're making is that Q4 will start to see the growth of macroeconomy turn around. And I think that's kind of what we're planning for, and looking at it and saying, look, we're not smart enough to think 2-3 years out. 6 months from now, what are we doing today that is going to put us in a position to win new contracts and hire the best people in the marketplace in 6 months, in kind of 6 months time frame.
But even Chip, but even with that you say in that Q4, what that tells me is that you're not planning to grow unless you start, you're not going to invest in growth, even though you're doing well now, okay, until you start seeing the market kind of pull you along. So you're not going to try to get ahead of it to grow.
We'll be very opportunistic about that. So there's some key roles in our organization that we need to hire that I've put on a freeze at this point. So if those type of individuals come forward, it's 3 or 4 individual roles, if you will. If we were to identify those, our recruiting team is charged with finding these type of high caliber individuals. If we were to identify one of those, we would probably move forward with them even in the uncertainties right now. But outside of that, we have a freeze on headcount. Outside of last week, we hired 4 people, but they were billable consultants that our customers needed.
Right. Got it. Okay. How about, thanks for sharing that, Chip. I appreciate that. And what about a VC perspective? Nelson, are you there?
I am here.
Okay, I see your picture. You're frozen in time, my friend. Okay. But I was just wondering if, oh, thank you. I was just wondering if you might share sort of the VC's perspective, what you see. You're always so thoughtful about these types of situations, and you've been in business long enough. Tell me about it.
I guess our portfolio sort of breaks into 3 pieces. There's those that are, they probably were a little close on the edge, and this is, makes it really, really challenging for them. I'd say a third are sort of fair to middling. They could probably do okay. And a third are actually going to do pretty well, right? So there's one company that does machine-based proctoring of exams. And now that there are 850 million students taking tests from home, their business is 6 to 8x. So there's some examples where companies are doing well. I think the ones that are fair to middling, they just have to figure out how to conserve costs and really focus on those customers that we think will survive this, right? Times like this are pretty interesting. It sort of weeds out the chaff, right? So the weak just fall away. And that applies not only to startup companies, but our customers. So we have some customers where they're retailers, and some of them totally get it. They're like, hey, we need your software so we can sell online. And then there's some customers that turned off a project that we've been implementing for a year. They're like, are you kidding me? You don't have any stores. You're going to turn off an e-commerce project. And then lo and behold, a week later, we saw they filed for bankruptcy, right? So, it gets the weak out of the system. And that's a $5 billion retailer, very well-known brand, but they just totally don't get it. And then we have another customer that has been implementing for 9 months, and they're going full speed ahead, the retail customer. So, some customers, so I would say for most entrepreneurs, focus on those customers that really get it. And
what do you mean by that they really get it?
Meaning they know how to operate in the new economy, right? So you're going to have reduced retail presence for, who knows, 30, 60, 90, 120 days. And some of your customers understand how to operate in that environment, and some of them won't.
So you do, so you believe that we should be looking somewhat at the macro view here in order, whereas before we just looked at the, product market fit thing. We've seemed to be forced into or thrust into this thinking about, well, how does what's going on really impact my customers and their buyers, okay, and their trading partners, right?
That's right. And look, these are times that really cause you to focus. I actually think that product market fit becomes simpler in times like this.
Hmm.
And you have fewer customers. Fewer customers don't want to take your call, and really, if you put a PO under their nose, they really think of a purchase order. They really think about it. Now, on the other hand, large enterprise customers, it's actually a good time to actually have a lot of webinars because they have time on their hands, right? At least the IT shops that are going to stay in business for a while, they actually have time on their hands. And then with some of our customers, we got them to upgrade after years of trying to get them to upgrade, not only our software, but the underlying Oracle software. We have one hotel customer in Macau who's on some version of Oracle that isn't even supported anymore. And when they went to zero occupancy for 3 weeks, we got them to upgrade their version of Oracle and upgrade our version of our software. So it's the last piece of software that we had support from 5 years ago. Finally got it off our books. So they had time to, implement. So this is a good time to focus on those customers that have been around for a while and will continue to stay around, either get them to upgrade old software, or in some cases, it's the approach that we're taking is, hey, let us be your partner and help you through this process. Some of our hotel customers are calling us up and saying, hey, we're going to go into a mode where hotels in North America are going to be shut down and turned on in less than 24 hours. Like shut down, might go dark for 3 weeks, and then all of a sudden we might get the go ahead from corporate to turn on. Can you help us turn on a hotel in 24 hours? I said, absolutely. We're running your housekeeping. We can tell you exactly how many housekeepers you need at 10%, 20%, 30% occupancy versus 90% that you've been running at.
So our customer, this is going back, I like what you said, and I'd love to open this up to people. You made a comment, you said product market fit is actually easier right now, right? And you gave an example. They're calling you and saying, look, this is the problem we need solved. Can you help us? I mean, what's more clear than that, right?
Right.
So is there anybody else? Are you finding that product market fit is actually easier now than it was before, that you're actually more clearly identifying that your customers' needs than you were before, hitting on something that may be more important to them that they'll spend money on today? Wow. Crickets, baby. Crickets.
It could be situational dependent too, though.
The what?
It could depend on the situation, but ultimately I think, if you focus in on what the customer needs right now, and they know, right? A lot of them need cash. And so if you can help them with that, that's good. If not, then you need to move on to the next customer.
One of the things that I brought up last week, I thought it was interesting, is we were talking about this, how do you find the customers who are willing to give you money, okay, for what you do, is to actually ask the customers, what are you buying now? Did anybody take me up on that and start call their customers and say, hey, we all talking about what's going on in the economy, and what's going on in Washington, but has anybody asked their customers, so what in fact are you buying now? Is anybody talking to customers?
Hey, Charlie, this is Jason Perez.
Oh, great, Jason. Thank you. Can we have a video of you, Jason?
Yeah, you can. Let me do that.
There you go. Thank you.
Perfect. So I was going to address what Nelson was saying because I was
give a little background on yourself first and your company?
Yes.
That'd be good.
So Jason Perez, I'm CEO of Yards. We're a rental management platform for the construction industry. I had my own consulting company for 10 years. I focused on mission critical, so data centers, biotech, healthcare.
Good.
That's pretty much it.
No, that's good. It tells us where you're coming from. That's all.
Yeah. So So I completely agree with Nelson 100%. I was nodding and applauding on my side when he said that it's actually easier. And I don't know if it's necessarily easier because we're asking different questions, but I think what it's done is require your customers to actually strip down the nice to haves and say, this is what's core, right? So usually when you ask these questions, they're like, oh, it'd be great if it did this. It'd be great if it did that. And you go, well, but what are you doing now and what do you need, right? And now I think they're stripping down and going, all these nice to haves aren't so important. I just want to get things done, right? And one of my philosophies when it comes to technology is that the first stage of what you put out there in technology, at least, you know, in our case, I should say, in construction, it's about matching the workflow and behavior and simplifying. So before you get to enhance something, you really simplify it, and that's where you get that market fit, right? Make it easier for people to do things, streamline the process, and automate the manual. And when you simplify it, people naturally are going to gravitate to it. And right now, there's, you know, different scenarios to solve where in my market, you know, some people have been hit, but some are still going really, really strong in construction, and it's been considered essential business, right? So there's been a massive labor shortage, and I don't know if with some construction projects slowing down that problem has been solved for them, but they still need to get more done, right?
Yeah.
And so when you're asking these questions, I think I'm getting truer responses rather than a bunch of enhancements and nice to haves, right?
What
So
questions
I
are you
agree with
asking?
Nelson. I think people are stripping down and going to their core and saying, this is what I really need. Can you do it?
What questions are you asking when you ask those questions you said? So what kind of questions are you asking of these people?
Well, you know, for us, getting into the workflow side of it, I'm always about behavior. So it's always asking, what are you doing now to solve the problem that you have? And when you usually dig into that, they'll show you a spreadsheet. In our case, they show you whiteboards, sticky notes. They show you all these strange things that they're doing to solve the problem now. And we work through that workflow. And what we've seen in the past, though, is as we go through them, we say, okay, let's talk through how our product matches that. We always would get into this, well, gosh, if it did this and I would love for it to do that, you get all these, and we try to segment that. And I think in the last week, I've been talking to some of the customers and I've just asked them the same question. Hey, I know you mentioned how important this was to you. Is it still really important? Because we're refining our roadmap. I mean, really, for us, we're talking to some of our customers that we have already, not necessarily new customers. And what we're seeing is that these new feature sets are a lot less important than they used to be.
Yeah, it's interesting. Thank you. It's because I think what's interesting is we were in a market that was expanding the way it's been doing from a macro standpoint. I mean, everything was just blowing up. Okay. We get a little self-centered and we think that we're here to sell people this product. Okay. And what I hear you saying is now we're becoming better salespeople because we're now consultative. We're saying, I'm more interested in you and what's going on in your life and the problems that you're having right now. And so what we do is we try to get to an answer or an issue in their minds that they're asking us to help them solve it, as opposed to us coming in and telling them how we could make their life easier. So we're actually going to come out of this, I think, to be better salespeople, you know, better organizations for sure.
Well, and the reality is the sales cycles, especially for enterprise clients, you know, we're looking, this is the time for us to build genuine relationships, not sales relationships. You know, this is an opportunity for all of us to change the way that we lead, the way that we interact. And I think that's, you know, that's some of the most important things that people are forgetting. I think this is an opportunity for us to bring some humanity back to how we do business.
Wow, there's a big statement. Somebody brought up humanity. Thank you, Jason.
Hey, Charlie, Michael Leahy here. If I could just add on to that.
Yeah,
That's
Mike.
because I really think he hit on something important. Michael Leahy with Brave Hearts. I work in a marketplace. I run a nonprofit where 90% of our revenues are services driven as opposed to donor contributions. And Jason really mentioned something that hits home to me because for me, our market's growing. Unfortunately, people are turning to addictive behaviors. We deal specifically with folks on how to solve their problems of struggling with things like sexual addiction, alcoholism, drug addiction, what have you. And one of the things that I've been doing that has really helped is taking Jason's comment one step further. This is a great opportunity to establish leadership and to guide people. Kind of like we've been doing online what they call telehealth for the last 8 years. And didn't see the coronavirus epidemic coming or anything, but I've always believed that we were doing things unlike what other people were doing. They were still having in-person, face-to-face meetings and what have you. So what I'm doing now is going out to not just my potential clients, but also to my peers in my industry and saying, listen, this is what we're doing is successful. Our business is actually, or our business tree is actually growing. We want to help you learn how to grow and use these tools now as well. Kind of like the conversations you and I have had about using Zoom for these kind of meetings. I think there's a great, bottom line is this, I think there's a great opportunity for some of us to really establish our leadership position in our marketplace, regardless of what that marketplace is. And people, there are people that are going to respond out of fear, and there are going to be people who are going to be looking for leaders to help them get through this.
It's interesting, you were telling me about addiction. Michael started in this whole porn addiction industry here. And Michael, just talk about what the porn sites you're finding are doing. Like you talked about Italy with me, which was kind of shocking. Okay, but we don't think about addiction because no one talks about addiction, right?
Yeah.
But tell us how they're trying to expand their markets to get more people addicted.
Yeah, well, in the area of sexual addiction and addiction to pornography specifically, it's unfortunate, but some of the commercial pornographers, big commercial websites, I won't name names, but the largest is actually making their premium membership free to people in specific countries. So if you have employees or you have a business in Italy, you get premium access to pornographic website material for free. The same thing, they're hitting, country by country. So there's some real opportunists out there. But even irregardless of that, it's, you've heard the president talk about a concern about an increase in suicides. You're starting to hear people talk about more of an issue with mental health. And this is going to affect your employees. This is going to affect your business leaders. So one of the things that's happened is all the folks who have held back on letting telehealth really take off by allowing counselors and therapists to work with people outside of their state board, affiliated areas. Now they can market across the country and literally across the world. This is something we've been doing in my space because I've developed a mentoring model for this that has nothing to do with becoming board certified and all that. So the thing that we're doing, like my wife right now today is working on a Facebook ad strategy to target Italy. Because we want to, knowing that Italy is being targeted by the commercial porn industry, we want to be in there to target our solution to people that are being hit the hardest.
Thanks, Michael. I think one of the things, it's great that you've been on the call because I think it's something that we need to consider here as people who are leading businesses, okay? When we have all of these people pushed to their own homes, it does cause a change in behavior and this lack of sort of accountability, if you will. Now I'm sort of, everything I do is private, all right? And if there is some, if we're open to addiction, if that's part of who we are, okay, we're going to get drawn, there's a good possibility of being drawn into it. Plus there's emotional issues that people are going to be having with this. So I think as an employer, we have to all be sensitive to that it's just not business as usual. We've kind of broke our social interaction. Our sociology has changed tremendously here. So thanks, Michael. I appreciate that. And we're getting on 9:45 at this, and this I told you we'd end on time, but just keep in mind, first of all, I want to thank all of you for coming. And I also want to thank all of you who shared. Hope you got something, the rest of you got something out of it. And Jim, I want to thank you very specifically for stepping in, to the gap here and putting yourself on the table and sharing all that's going on in your business and with your thinking. You're a great entrepreneur, and I pray for you, and I wish you the best, as I pray for all of you. But my thought is still that, here's the deal. I think that we need to think at first, I think at that macro level, and then the micro level. I've really learned in investing that micro is a slave to the macro. So we have to be sensitive to it. We can't just park it. We could park the catastrophic macro, but we shouldn't park what's going on. It should be part of our planning process. So from a macro standpoint, I'd say keep an eye. My advice is keep an eye on the physical damage that's being done and the economic damage that's being done. In other words, is the mitigation strategy working? If that decreases sooner rather than later, that's good. And if the unemployment numbers, look at them. So as those two things are going to work in correlation with each other, they will determine, I think, the length of this recovery and how fast maybe your spend should be on growth numbers. And at the macro level, I think that it was great that Nelson brought it up, and Jason too, is, it's actually easier now to do product market fit. Ask your buyers what they're buying, what they need, get them in the process that they're in. And then ask them about their buyers and those priorities. And that'll give you a feel for how well they're doing in their businesses and what their buyers are doing. And then you're one of their trading partners. Ask them about the other trading partners, so how their ecosystem is going. So these are just some thoughts for you. My old partner, Richard Brock, many of you know him. He was around for years. He's now in Arizona, but he always used to tell me when I used to complain back when I was in my early 20s how crazy hard this is. He goes, tough times never last, but tough people do. And these times, I think, are going to make us tough business people. They're going to make us better business people by testing us. We get sloppy in good times. These are tough times. We're going to come out of this, and we're going to be better in all our roles. That's in our families, in our businesses, and also in our communities. So I think we'll be better if we keep showing up for these calls and keep sharing with each other. I appreciate you taking the time to do this. I just want to tell you all that know that I am praying for you, as are many other people. So this is going to happen. It's going to go okay. We're going to get through it. Let's be smart about it. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Charlie.
Thank you, Charlie.
Take care.
We'll see you guys.
Thank you, Charlie.
Okay,
Thank you,
bye.
Charlie.
Thanks, Charlie.